Hello, friends, and welcome to the Exploring Washington State podcast. My name is Scott Cowan, and I'm the host of the show. Each episode, I have a conversation with an interesting guest who is living in or from Washington State. These are casual conversations with real and interesting people. I think you're going to like the show. So let's jump right in with today's guest. So my guest today is John Tillison, or otherwise known as Park Ranger John. John is in the Spokane area, and his website talks all about national parks, national sites. John, I have a blister from scrolling through your site today. I was doing some research and I have a blister. I'm going to send you the bill for the Band-Aid. That's kind of how much data you have on your site. So first off, amazing. And second of all, welcome.
Thank you.
What I wanted to have you on for initially was to talk about our national parks in Washington State, because we're all about Washington here. But before we go there, I'd kind of like you to tell the audience a little bit of your backstory. But then I'd also, if you would, because I learned something on your site today, there's a whole lot more national parks and national sites than I was aware of. So I'd love to know kind of the backstory of the national park system and how that all came about to the best of your telling.
Well, first a little bit about me, and my story is, I had a military family, so my mom's side of the family is from Washington, Fairchild Air Force Base, Air Force. Mm-hmm. And so I lived part of my life in Florida, Alabama when I was young, and then came into Washington State, and I just fell in love with the area, to love the outdoors. And, I was a Boy Scout growing up, Eagle Scout, doing all that stuff. I was a kid that was always outdoors,
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
What was the hardest badge for you to get?
It was something like citizenship in the community or something like that. And it was like a whole bunch of questions, and it took a lot of time to get it done. No.
I was never involved in that, but the guy who's my producer, he was an Eagle Scout. And then a good friend of mine, her son was an Eagle Scout. And I've always been impressed with the amount of effort that it takes.
Yes.
And commitment.
Yeah, and it is. But, at the same time, that's where I got my love of the outdoors, partially because, we had camping trips once a month. And, and then, summer camp and everything else. I was always outdoors. And that was my thing. And then I got a regular job, which was crazy. And, I worked for several years, and I didn't realize, I never put 2 + 2 together about, hey, I could work outdoors, really? So when that stumbled upon me, I went to college, and man, I was all in. And I went to Spokane Community College. I got my degree there, went down to WSU, and continued with education there. Then I ended up going to the Park Ranger Academy up in Mount Vernon at Skagit Valley College.
Okay.
And they got a well-known reputation program there. There's only, I think, 1 or 2 of those in the entire U.S. for park rangers, for the National Academy for Park Rangers.
Okay.
A lot of the national park rangers, they end up, when they get a permanent job, they all end up going to FLETC, just like all federal law enforcement agencies do. And that's a pretty intense program to go through. They go through the same thing as like the FBI and everybody else does.
Wow. Okay.
So it's pretty intense. So anyway, I got on, and I applied and got onto Washington State Parks. And man, I was excited. I spent my first day in Washington State Parks was May 1st, 1994. And I can still remember that day I was so excited. The first day I go to work, and I worked at a place called Sun Lake State Park. And that first day, it was 101 degrees outside. And I spent 8 hours cleaning garbage out of some juniper trees where the raccoons had got into. So that was a good, fun day, first day of work. But it didn't turn me away.
I was going to say that would be memorable. Oh, my gosh. Okay.
So I worked at Sun Lake State Park, Lake Easton, up on Snoqualmie Pass, and the winter recreation, the parks up there. Went back to Sun Lake for another small stint. Then I worked in the Palouse area. So I worked in the Columbia Plateau Trail. It's one of the railroad corridors. And then it included Palouse Falls and Steptoe Butte before going to Riverside and Mount Spokane to finish up my career. So I bounced all over the place.
Yeah, you did.
And I spent over 20 years in state parks.
Okay. So,
And yeah,
so as you transitioned out of the state parks into what you're doing nowadays, it kind of almost seems like a natural progression going from the day-to-day being park ranger and the duties you mentioned off before recording, just the different at the Riverside Park, the different type of duties you had versus saying in Lake Easton or somewhere else, right? So,
right.
so you transitioned away from park ranger duties into talking about parks. Honestly, it seems like a brilliant transition to me.
Well, it wasn't a brilliant trend. Well, it turned out to be brilliant.
Okay.
At the time, it seemed like the end of the world to
Okay.
me. And the reason why I say it seemed like the end of the world is when in 2015, I think it's December 2015, we was doing a regular training as law enforcement officers, is doing defensive tactics. Well, I ended up getting my knee blown out. And it was bad enough that it was a career-ending injury.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I got a permanent disability from it and everything. And when you find a job that you really love and you're passionate about, it's pretty devastating.
Right.
And my wife is the one that brought it up because she had already been blogging. She goes, "Why don't you start a blog and talk about it?" And I was like, "I feel like I still got a story to tell,"
Mm-hmm.
and that's how it started.
Okay.
And that's how it's just led into this program.
All right. Before we move off of your career, I got to ask you a couple of questions. Just
Go for it.
out of doing to being a park ranger for all those years, you've got to have a couple of stories that are too good to be true or unbelievable, whatever, however you want to say it. I mean, your first day was picking up trash from due to raccoons. Share a couple stories with us of a day in the life, if you will.
A day in a life. There was no typical one day. I mean, one day you're doing maintenance and maybe cutting trees to doing road repair. I mean, we were like the road department, the sewer department, the water department, the building department. We done it all. We done the law enforcement. We done regular maintenance. I mean, and then we managed employees on top of it. So it was, I mean, you were a jack of all trades in a way with the
Right.
specialized skills too. So it was kind of crazy. But I loved it.
Mm-hmm.
Stories, oh my gosh, I could talk your ear off.
I'm sure.
And some of the stuff that I've done now, where I did it in the past, I mean, I'm sure it would have got me in trouble later. But I remember when I was first right out of I wasn't even in academy yet. I was still a grunt guy. I got hired, to clean the bathrooms and stuff. And I was working the late shift. I couldn't get anybody on the phone. And it was during a burn ban.
Mm-hmm.
And it was high fire danger. And I had a bunch of really, really intoxicated individuals that was wanted to just drink beer and have a big bonfire. And they wouldn't listen to me. I couldn't get no help. So I just went ahead and went and backed up a fire pumper to it, up to my work truck and started it up. It's about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I just drove right up to the site. They didn't see me because they were all just hooping, hollering, having a good time. And I put about 200 psi of water on their campfire. And let's just say when I got done, they were standing in a puddle, and I just seen the whites of their eyes and their teeth because everything else was covered in soot from all the smoke that had settled. and I didn't have to say anything else. They just, okay, we've outworn our welcome, kind of. They realized it. They packed their stuff up and they went to bed.
Oh my God! So I have to ask, what did your boss say the next day?
Oh, I didn't tell anybody about that.
Oh, okay.
There's some of the things that you just wouldn't believe. And people, they don't pay attention. I always got asked all the time because I worked in rattlesnake country.
Okay.
How many people got bit by rattlesnakes? That was a real common.
Okay. Was it? Is it?
I knew 4 people in my career that got bit by rattlesnakes.
Okay.
3 of them were picking them up and playing with them. So my moral of my story is don't pick up and play with rattlesnakes. Another guy was intoxicated too, and he's running through the desert at night with flip-flops on and shorts and no flashlight. And he ran across one and, it bit him too. So,
I can almost feel sorry for that guy. Cause that's just I'll be politically incorrect and just say he was being stupid.
Yeah.
But the people picking him up and playing, what?
So I mean, rattlesnakes are not they're not aggressive. They don't want to mess with humans, and I've
Right.
never seen that. And in fact, they want to just get away from us.
Right.
And so, like I said, I've seen hundreds of snakes in my life, and I've never seen a rattlesnake aggressive once in my life unless it's cornered or something.
Mm-hmm.
And every person I've known that's got bit was doing stupid things. Just use a little common sense and you'll get out okay, is what I've always said.
playing with rattlesnakes. Okay.
Yep. When they're poisonous, you shouldn't try playing with them.
So I guess the question I have, so 4 people, you're aware of 4 people kind of on in your work related. Were they all okay, or were they able to get treatment and be okay, or?
From all the ones that I knew, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, rattlesnake bites is very survivable nowadays.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
it really is. I mean, the main thing is to go in and get treatment. You're going to have a bad few days, but
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you can only blame yourself if you're the one playing with the snake. Oh my gosh.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So when you started your site, call them a blog, that I don't know if that's the right word anymore, but I'll call it a site. When you started your site, what are the initial, what'd you start with?
When I decided I wanted to do this, like I said, I kind of felt like I still had a story to tell. And I felt like that my job was quickly transitioning from when I had first started to doing more of what I call Yogi Bear stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff I really enjoyed. I enjoyed interpretation. I had really loved meeting people in public. And it really started turning a lot more specialized into law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And I found myself doing that all the time. And so I really missed the part of connecting with the public. I really enjoyed that. And in my experience working parks for 20 years, what I seen and what people were asking me day after day after day, what they wanted, what they needed and stuff, I would go to look when I go camping or recreating myself, and I couldn't find the information easily.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're like a total park geek like myself, you don't mind going through the website and digging through 20 different tabs and trying to find the answer and stuff like that. I mean, that's all part of the fun of the game to me. But
Mm-hmm.
but for somebody that just wants to know, can they take their pet on this trail, or well, is there Wi-Fi right here in your campsite? Some of those things are next to impossible to find out. And then if you call the campground, the odds on you're probably not going to get a hold of somebody. And it's a big mystery. And and we're in a world today, just like me, I have my own website where I do things remotely.
Mm-hmm.
If you have business, I mean, there's a lot of people now that, they have to stay connected.
Right.
And that's important. I mean, they might get away for a few hours, but they can't go away multiple days. So, I mean, that's a very important thing for them to know.
Right. I also noticed in some of them, you have electric charging stations listed.
Yes. I mean, yeah, I don't know where you're at. I think you're in the Washington state. So, that our state's pretty progressive. And I mean, I'm seeing Teslas pop up everywhere now, and, and electric vehicles are a big push for the forward future.
Right.
And,
well, in Wenatchee,
it's become more and more important. Yeah.
So I live in Wenatchee, and I was talking to a guy Friday. It's called Link Transit, the buses here. So the big buses, not the vans, not the airport shuttle style stuff, but the big buses, they're all electric now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and he is a mechanic, he's working on them. So I was asking, well, how do they charge? And they were saying there's a bus stop downtown in Wenatchee, and they actually have induction plates that the bus just parks over and charges, kind of like you're charging your cell phone by setting. Yeah. And I was like,
oh, wow.
I was like, this is amazing to me. Anyway, Wenatchee's going all in now. There, some of the long routes that are going from, like, say, from Wenatchee up to Chelan, that's still diesel. But the new buses that they're getting have enough range and capacity that they're going to be able to do this, 90-mile round trip, 100-mile round trip multiple times in a day with an electric bus.
That's amazing.
But with induction charging at the waiting stations, I'm like, I would have never known.
Wow,
but
that's genius.
It's kind of cool. And you're right. You see more and more of these electric vehicles, not just Teslas. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of Ford Mustangs now, the electric
Yes.
Mustang. And then Ford's got their pickup truck, which
Mm-hmm.
I think they stopped making right now for technical reasons. But the point is, the future looks like more of us are going to be driving electric vehicles,
Mm-hmm.
and more of us are going to take those electric vehicles to some of these parks. And so,
Well, a lot of people will send me emails, ask me questions, and that's
Mhm.
one of the biggest questions I'm getting asked right now is about electric vehicles.
Really, okay,
Yeah.
totally off. I would not have thought to ask this question, but you said it. I warned you. This is how to go. How many emails are you getting a day from your audience?
It really depends. Like, I just come out of the wintertime, so it wasn't quite as bad.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden, right now, that was our cat.
I shouldn't laugh, but okay.
We have a cat. When he feels like he's being ignored, he'll drop stuff.
Oh my God. We have our dog does that too. So, and he's 120 pounds. So yeah.
So now everybody's starting to jumping right back in. They're starting to plan their trips,
Mm-hmm.
and that's very important. I mean, especially if you're wanting lodging in the national parks or campsite, you really need to be jumping on it and getting ahead.
Mm-hmm.
And even now, some of the big national parks you got to have days reservations.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they've just got so popular, they couldn't handle the capacity anymore.
Right.
So they went to like a lottery system or a permit system. So now people are starting to look, and I'm probably getting, between my comments on social media and things, probably 20 to 50 questions a day some days.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
So yeah, I'm getting quite a few questions.
All right. So let's go back to the question I wanted you to answer at the beginning, which we got away from, but let's talk about the national park system. When did the national park system begin? And I guess the question, so here's these just, I could have done the research, but it's more fun to just ask the questions, be lazy. So when did the national park system begin?
It began in just over 100 years ago.
Okay.
And the first designated national park was Yellowstone.
Okay. That was my next
But there's
question.
actually a little bit of a backstory because Yosemite was actually set back as a park in the late 1800s before Yellowstone was developed. So you can really say that Yosemite was the first park really set aside.
Okay.
But it was the first, and they had their big 100-year celebration here just a couple years ago.
Okay.
In the national parks, and it happened right around the COVID time too, which is crazy. So all of a sudden you have everybody that's wanting to go out to parks, social distance, because that was the safe thing we could do, right?
Right.
And then you have the 100-year anniversary for parks, and it's just really exploded on the scene. And and the other question I remember you asking, I forgot about this because I got talking, is you asked about the number of park sites.
Yes.
And you thought it was probably the 63 national parks. That's what a lot of people think. So what you got is you got the designated national parks, but you also have like national historic sites, national monuments, national historic places, national lake shores, national seashores, military parks. And what that comes down to really is this kind of like a land use classification.
Okay.
And that's how the park's going to manage that area. Like one of them is like Lake Mead and Lake Roosevelt. Both they were built with the dams, so they're their own separate designation. But they were put together because of a dam, like Lake Roosevelt in Washington, up in eastern Washington and northern part. And the lake was actually created after Grand Coulee was built. And it created this huge lake behind it. It's called Lake Roosevelt.
Yep.
Who was the president that done the signing for the getting Grand Coulee?
Right.
Roosevelt.
He got a lake out of it.
Yeah, he got a lake out of it. He got a named lake out of it. That's
right.
But that's how that would. So they manage that as a little bit different. National seashores. You're looking at different things. A lot of beach access. You got quite a few of them's got forts and stuff like that. So they're managed a little bit different. Fishing, sand, beach activities. National parks are designed to protect a resource. And one of the biggest questions I always get asked is about one park, the one or two parks that people always ask about. They're like, I didn't really think this should be a national park. And one of them is Biscayne National Park in Florida,
Okay.
which protects over 95% water in Biscayne Bay. And it actually protects lots of sea life. Amazing park. Once you actually understand what the park is and get out and explore it,
Hmm.
phenomenal park. One of my favorite parks in the system, actually. I really dig the place.
Okay.
And then the other one is Hot Springs in Arkansas. And that was set aside for the that was known as healing waters.
Right.
And even back in the heyday, even you had your criminals and stuff that would come in and go sit in a hot bath, and the soaking bath is supposed to be healing waters in it. But everybody just got along because they was just looking for the healing waters and baths and stuff.
Going back into like the 19 in the teens in the 1910 1920 era, hot springs were a lot of Major League Baseball teams would send their players there in spring training, and they would sit in the hot springs as a way of getting their bodies back together for baseball season.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, these were really popular places. And I mean, it wasn't cheap to go to them. I mean, it was like a luxury thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
With some people, they would be like medically prescribed to go, sit in the hot tubs and not, and try to recuperate and stuff. So, but that's what it's protection for, is protection of water. And even today, you can go to Hot Springs National Park, and they even have spigots where you can go in jugs of water and get water there. I mean,
Really?
that's their thing, is they protect the water as a resource.
Okay.
So there's always something there that the parks are there for a reason. They're protecting something.
So as I was looking through here, so where this question for me came up was, you talk about the Whitman near Walla Walla, Whitman Historical Site.
Yes.
So now so the Whitman Historical Site, is that managed at the federal level then?
It's all under the national park system.
Okay.
It's just that land was classified as a historical site.
Okay.
So it was like a national monument. So it'll be like a building or a statue or something that commemorates something.
Right.
So, and then you've got some that are like National Historical Park, and that's a bigger step up because they have multiple buildings or multiple things.
Okay.
So, like Martin Luther King Jr. is a great example. It's a National Historical Park because it's got their visitor center. It's got the Ebenezer Church right there. You got Martin Luther King's birthplace home, and the fire department right there where he used to play on the back of and stuff like that.
Okay.
And they got the ponds and stuff like that. So that they have multiple things going on. But like a historical site, you go to some of the sites, some of the old forts in the Midwest that were, when people were moving out west, they're afraid of Native Americans.
Mhm.
There's just like a fort there or something, and that'll be about it.
Yeah, there's one my wife's family stays at in Nebraska. I want to say oh gosh, she went last summer and I can't remember, but they stay in the barracks there. They've turned the barracks into accommodations.
Right. Okay.
I want to say Smith, but I mean
Fort Smith, maybe.
I think that's it.
Could be.
It's a very generic name, if you will. Fort Smith, Fort Jones.
Well,
I'm not sure, but okay. So if we add all of these together, what number are we at these days?
The last I knew, I think it's 424 now. 424 national park sites.
Okay.
Now there's some also what they call affiliated sites where the national parks will put some funding into it, maybe put an interpretive ranger to help interpret the site.
Okay.
But there are a few of those, not too many of them.
Okay.
But actually, what parks manage 424? And the best way I like to describe it, I think of the national parks as like the history of America.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the national battlefields is going to be like Shiloh National Military Park, Matanzas, all the big like Civil War battlefields, stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay. Do you? Yeah, and I saw your crystal ball sitting right there, so this should be easy for you just to access your crystal ball and look in the future. Do you see this number growing?
Oh yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, history continues in America. I mean, the civil rights continue to develop, and women's rights, gay rights. There's Stonewall National Monument now in New York,
Hmm.
and that was like kind of like the birthright of
Right.
right there where the rights for LGBTQ
Right.
started was right there.
So
So
I went to, why this would be 15 years ago. The in Oklahoma City,
the bombing,
the
yes,
bombing, is that a national park? Is that what?
I think that's actually an affiliate site.
Okay. So have you been there?
Yes.
That I took my kids and they were little kids at that time. And we were driving, they were living in Cincinnati at the time I was driving them home. And that I don't know what I expected. It wasn't what I expected. It was very moving. It was
Yes.
very emotionally charged. Very well done, I thought. Okay. So let's shift gears here and let's talk about Washington State has 3 national parks.
Right.
Okay. I was a little nervous on that one. He's going to correct me. So we've
No,
got
you're great.
we've got Mount Rainier.
Yes, sir.
We've got the Olympic National Park,
Uh-huh.
and then we have
North
the
Cascades.
North Cascades, right? But that one's, so I never think of that one. Okay, so that's kind of the odd man out in my brain. So let's start there.
Okay.
Because isn't that an extremely large area?
It's a huge area. It's also north, in the Cascades, very north, coming all the way up to Canada, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you're talking the north end. Access can be pretty limited.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's part of it. And even the main highway there, Highway 20, is closed seasonally because of snow. So, I think that doesn't get as much attention because of that part.
Right.
But anybody's ever been there, I mean, it's absolutely breathtaking.
Right.
Tons of hiking trails in it. There's a few campgrounds, and but there's no real lodges.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a draw for some people, some of the lodges, especially out west.
Right.
And but
let me ask you this question.
It does go through some fun towns, like you come in and you come up through Winthrop, and that area, Twisman, Winthrop, and then you come back down, and
yep.
Well,
let me ask you this question: if somebody was assigned to be a park ranger there, what do they do when is it technically closed during, we'll call it winter? So is it a seasonal job? Do they get moved somewhere else? Do you know?
There is some seasonal jobs. There is some permanent jobs as well. I mean, there's still people that come up and winter recreate that area.
Okay.
So you do have some winter recreation, but there's always stuff to do. I mean, you do need management there. You do need, I mean, the logistics of planning maintenance and stuff like that for the summer, hiring for summer staff. I mean, it all takes planning and maintenance and logistics. So you do need a certain amount of permanent staff.
So even though it's not, I'll say, I'm not completely correct when I say it's closed for the season, but it's not.
The funny thing is a lot of what we don't see behind the scenes, like the wintertime was a great time for me to get training. Okay. It was time for me, in certain things you had to have, like I had to have a pesticide applicator's license because we sprayed our road shoulders and stuff like that as part of maintaining the park in the area.
Right.
But you have to have a license and you have to go through so many hours of training every year. So, this is a great time to get that training in instead of busy season because, I need to get the pesticide out and then be available in the summertime as much as possible. Right. Our law enforcement training, we're required by law to maintain so many hours of law enforcement training. Okay. So you try to get as much as you can during the non-busy season. Right. So I mean, there's all these little intricate details, and there's always something that comes up that we need to do. I mean,
right. Okay. So with the North Cascades, in your opinion, what are people overlooking up there? What's amazing that might be overlooked?
Man, the lakes, as you come in through that scenic drive up through there, I got to tell you, that drive between Winthrop and back over to the coast, that is one of the most scenic drives in the national park system, if you ask me. Okay. Absolutely breathtaking. You got views of Ross Lake and a couple other lakes up there. I mean, the colors of the water and the waterfalls, and just, I mean, going for even a short hike up there. This is Northwest Washington. I mean, this is some of the finest, the outdoors that we can expect. When people think of the Northwest,
Mm-hmm.
here you have it. This is like the epitome of the Northwest, if you ask me. It's just absolutely breathtaking.
So do you know when that was made into a national park?
That one I don't know.
Okay.
I'd have to look it up.
Okay.
I know it's later than the other ones.
Okay, so it is of the three, it's the newest one in the system then.
Now, and it's in 1968, I think it was.
68. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then it also consists of like the Chelan management area and that. So I mean, you've got that Stehekin area that is on the back end Lake Chelan. People riding the boat down back
Yep.
there. You can stay nights there. You can go backpacking, hiking all through that area. I mean, it's a large area, but it's mostly remote, and it's up to you how much you want to explore, really.
So from a park ranger job, then, if you were assigned up there, being so remote, I mean, people do stupid things when there's not a lot of access. In other words, there's been stories up in the north central Washington of, finding suitcases full of methamphetamine that have been dropped out of airplanes, things like that. So you've got all this rugged terrain that's very rural and not easily accessible. As a park ranger, you do some of your duties going out there and kind of checking around?
Well, that's part of, we were always doing patrols. I mean, I would say 99% of all people who go to parks are just amazing people.
Mm-hmm. Right. Oh yeah. It's a
But
small.
but then again, as I always told my wife, there's always a reason they put a gun on my head. Because there's always that 1%, that you have
Right.
to do. Drugs. I mean, it wasn't all too long ago that before, we legalized marijuana in the state of in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had a lot of marijuana come down from Canada. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
everybody always know the good stuff was the BC bud. I mean, that's what we always heard about, right?
Right.
And we had a lake that started in Canada and in the North Cascades and ended in the United States.
Right.
So that would be one easy access point trying to get through. And
Mm-hmm.
people would even try to hike through and stuff, they would try to find every way possible,
Right.
I mean, I remember in state parks, I mean, it was, I think, Deception Pass, they had a boat that had suspicion and caught with a lot of drugs on it coming from Canada. Yeah.
Well, even back in Prohibition days, Canada was providing alcohol to the state of Washington. There was a large boat ship, if you will, moored off of Vancouver Island, and the little boats would come up, fill it up with cases of whiskey, and scoot back down. There's a lot of interesting stories about Canada.
Well,
so
you talk about Prohibition. I think one of the most fun stories, and I told you I got stories, right?
Yeah.
So when you go to Glacier National Park, they were known for their lodges, and those lodges were actually part of what created the national park, because you had the railroad that came through,
mm-hmm.
and when the railroad came through, they was looking for more than just loads for money. They started looking to passenger traffic. They're the ones that actually built some of the big lodges in Glacier. So like the Big Trees Lodge and the Mid Glacier Lodge, the Spirit Chalet, those were all created by the railroad for tourism.
Okay.
So now the fun part about that is we hit Prohibition. The railroad's got their next big idea. And the lodge is just up in Canada at Waterton Lakes, the one that's right there just above.
Uh-huh.
That was built by the U.S. Railroad for tourism. And you know what kind of tourism that was, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Somebody can go for the weekend to the great outdoors and get their fill of their favorite beverage while they're at it in Canada, before heading back home.
Well, say what you want about Americans, but we are industrious.
Yes, we are.
We are creative and we are industrious. All right. So the North Cascades. So what I didn't realize is just the sheer number of acres that this park covers. And it's pretty amazing. And I agree with you 100%. That drive is a wonderful drive. And everybody should. If you haven't done the North Cascades loop, you should try it. I think it's a signature drive in our state. So that,
and the other thing to do is get a pair of hiking boots on and go hiking. Spend a few hours in the outdoors, and that you'll get that true experience of the outdoors. And that's the Cascades right there.
So I'll ask you this question as we're going to transition to one of the other two. I'm going to guess that Rainier was a national park before the Olympic was created.
Rainier was one of the original 5 national parks.
So let's talk about the Olympics then. So what's going on what have you experienced up there?
Man, the Olympics is probably one of the most incredible parks in the system, if you ask me. Okay. It's incredible because, when you talk about size again, this park is freaking massive. Yeah, and when I say massive, the people that make the number one mistake is wanting to spend a day to go to the park and leave. You're going to do good to drive that circle in a day. Mm-hmm, and that's not even getting out looking at things. That's just driving. I mean, it's really that big. There's that much to do. Mm-hmm. I'd like to tell people to break it up in like a few different sections. Okay. Because you've got the rainforest section, you got the beach, and then you got the mountains. And so you really got 3 big sections to explore. The beaches are incredible. The lodge, like at Clay Lake Beach, absolutely one of my favorite places to stay. Mm-hmm. You got the Tree of Life. I mean, you got Ruby Beach. Anybody can, and anybody from us from Washington, it's one of the best secrets in the world is, when all of a sudden it hits 100 degrees and everybody's grumpy in Washington because everybody wants summer to hit, but when it hits 100 degrees, we all are hot, miserable, and grumpy.
You do know me.
That's just everybody. Go to the beach over there. It'll be 20 degrees cooler, and you will just be so happy.
Right.
And enjoy the day on the beach.
It's a beautiful area. Absolutely beautiful area.
And then you got the rainforest area. You got the whole rainforest, and and that whole Lake Quinault area. Mm-hmm. Man, talk about just some beautiful. I mean, you got some incredible trails to it and spend a day. Mm-hmm. You got the Sold Out Falls, Sold Out Hot Springs. And I don't know if you've ever been to the hot springs.
I have not.
There's some little cabins there. And again, another incredible place to explore. And if you want pictures of that kind of stuff, go look on my blog and just find my thing and get a little search thing. And you can just put Sold Out Hot Springs in it. Okay. And I've got articles on it. I got photos of it. I've experienced all this stuff, and it's just a blast. I love that area. I could spend days out there. And and then you got the upper mountains, and they get tons of snow in the winter. Right. But in the summertime, incredible hiking trails, epic vistas. I mean, it's just gorgeous up there. Tons of wildlife. There's so much to explore in the Olympics. You could easily spend a week there.
I'm on your Solduck Falls right now, looking at it. Okay. My scrolling blister, that was bad. I'm going to send you.
And the falls is one of the epic waterfalls in the state. It's such an icon.
Yeah.
But the hot springs themselves, I think, is just so much fun too. Anybody should spend a day. If anybody likes to go sit in hot baths and stuff like that, seriously. And what I've had people say, well, it doesn't really look like a natural hot spring. So some people will get turned off by it. Mm-hmm. But what I always tell people is go out and go hiking and exploring for like 3 or 4 days and just wear yourself out. Just have a great time until, your feet are hurting, your legs are hurting and everything, and you're tired and you need a break. And then go sit in that hot water. Man, it's the best thing you ever had. You'll think that's the best place in your spot.
Right. Now I found your hot springs. Oh, wow. Yeah, I've never been there. So
it's really incredible. It's a hidden gem, I think, to be honest. And it's got some cute little cabins there that you can rent. I think the cabins are rather affordable. I think they rent a couple hundreds a night, in the summer. But, what I've seen some of the national park lodges go for in the summertime, especially at Yellowstone, some of the big ones, some of them can run up into 500s at night.
Lodging is just one of those things that has, like everything, but lodging has gotten to be just
Yeah.
staggering.
Yes.
It just, no matter what. So the fact that I'm not blinking an eye at 200 is kind of, yeah.
Well, and part of it is you're paying for location.
Oh, yes.
Location, location, location.
Right.
And, and right here, when you're at the sold up hot springs, you're right there, right at the hot springs. You can go walk right out of your cabin in your shorts or your swimsuit and walk right across the parking lot. You're right there at the hot springs.
Right. No, I've never been there. This is beautiful.
And like the Claylock Lodge, for the price of them, I mean, you're right on the beach. You're right there on the water. I mean, you have incredible views. I mean, the view to me is worth the money.
I'm going to come back to, I have questions about your articles. So we're going to, after we talk about Rainier, I'd like to go there. So, but let's jump to Rainier because that is kind of, one of Washington State's, if not Washington State's iconic signature.
Absolutely.
I don't
we all know whether the mountain's out or what mountain's not out,
that is true. So, and that was one of the first national parks.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever, you've talked about hiking. Have you ever climbed Rainier?
I have not.
So
it's one of the technical challenges. I mean, for hikers, that's a really good starting point. If they're going to do one of the big hikes, it's a really good technical challenge to get them ready for them.
A guy that's been on this show a couple of times is a guy I know. He's a musician and all this. And I knew him as a musician. That's how I first got to know him. And we were talking one day and he goes, "Oh, I love history and all this stuff. And I'd love to be on your show because me and my friend, we recreated this hike of Tolmay Peak. And they recreated Tolmay's hike basically from Fort Nisqually to where he went, and it's like 1855. Don't quote me on it, but so instead of taking horses, they used electric bikes, but they recreated the whole thing. And I'm like, huh. So what got you into this? And he goes, "Oh, I've climbed Rainier." And I said, "Oh, and he's like, "Well, how many times have you climbed Rainier?" He goes, "I've summited, I think 13 times now."
Wow.
And I'm looking at him and I think of him as a musician. And, I don't necessarily think of musicians as climbers and outdoorsy people. And I'm just like 13 times. Oh my gosh.
Wow.
So, Rainier's iconic.
Yes.
But before we talk about all the things that it's really well known for, I'd like to ask you just the opposite. What's underappreciated there? What should somebody, if somebody's going to go to Rainier and they can look up all the well-documented stuff, what do you got to offer in the way of a tip for something that's off the beaten path, if you will?
How's that? Most people come in through the one entrance right there in Longmire, coming from the West Coast, coming across, you got the wooden thing that says Mount Rainier, right?
Yep.
And you get to drive up and you hit Longmire and you got, the typical route. I like going the back route. And I'm not talking about through Ohanapauge. I'm talking about through the back end by Tipsy Lake.
Oh, okay.
So if you come in kind of like Yakima, the north, that north route up that way, and it's only open seasonally as well, with the snow and stuff.
Right.
But, when you come into it, there's a beautiful lake right off to the left, right before you get to the park. But then you come up and you've got this big wooden bridge that runs right across, and it says Mount Rainier. Well, that bridge right there, do you know what that is?
I do not.
It's part of the PCT, the Pacific Crest Trail.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
So if you catch it the right time, you might actually see somebody walking across that because that's part of the Pacific Crest Trail. And part of that actually touches Mount Rainier. And, and talking about that, and then what's one of the other most popular hikes there is the Wonderland Trail that goes all the way around the mountain.
Right.
Which is when you get permits and all that stuff too. It's so popular. Right. But yeah, so you get to come over that, and it's just a beautiful twist turning road. Some people know about it, some people don't, but you'll see it on the map. It'll have Tipsoo Lake on it. And I actually wrote just an article on Tipsoo Lake on my blog.
Okay.
Because it's probably my favorite spot in all of Mount Rainier. So you come down there, and it depends on the time of the year. It could be covered in ice and snow, but when you catch it in the right time in the late summer, it is filled with wildflowers all the way around the lake.
Yep.
And then you've got this lake, and if you're at the back end of the lake, you're surrounded by wildflowers. You're looking at this lake, and on a calm day, you've got the reflection of Mount Rainier on the lake, looking at Mount Rainier.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the most that's one of the most photogenic places in the national parks altogether, right there. Absolutely stunning.
I made the mistake. Well, not a mistake. And a lack of planning on my part. How's that?
Okay.
We were going to go see some music being performed in Ording, you know, on the other side of the mountain. So we decided, hey, let's go down Chinook. Let's go down to Yakima and go across. Let's go the back way. This will be fun. What you haven't told everybody yet is that at the right time of year, it is bumper to bumper traffic, and people like pushing, I'm kidding, but pushing each other out of the way for a photo opportunity. I mean, it's insane how many people are there photographing that beautiful landscape. It's funny to me.
Yes,
but it took me like an hour longer than I anticipated because traffic was so bad, and I didn't give it any thought. But it was absolutely beautiful.
And Rainier is so well known now that, I mean, it's hard to find one of those little bitty hidden gems now because there's just so many people. And I'm seeing that a lot in a lot of the big parks. What I used to think was out in the middle of nowhere, I mean, God, my first trip to Arches was over 30 years ago.
Okay.
And I remember hitting a couple trails where I didn't see but maybe one or two people on the whole time.
Right.
And I don't know if you've heard about Arches. They now have an actual entry permit during the middle of the day where they limit the number of people, because there was literally more people trying to get in the park than they have parking spaces for.
Wow.
I mean, I'm like, people are constantly, they have to have so many cars driving just to keep people going. There was no place for them to go.
Jeez.
And you look at like the Delicate Arch, their most famous arch there, you know, it's on their license plate, you know, in Utah. And you look at that trail now, and you'll see where the arch is, and it just looks like a ant hill. You know, it looks like a bunch of ants going up the hill because there's so many people hiking.
Yeah. Okay. So Rainier, though, I mean, there's so much to see and do at this park, year round, really. I mean,
it's an amazing park and year round because I mean they have lots of winter recreation as well.
Right. Yeah. No, it really is. It really is a beautiful park. Have you done the Wonderland Trail? Did you ever?
I have not.
Okay.
And when I was a ranger for all these years, I mean, it was kind of hard to get time off because that was our go time.
Right.
And that was one of the hard things is, I had all these dreams of some of the places that I wanted to go to, but it was also my busy time at work.
Right.
And it never seemed to fail that I would get caught up in something I couldn't get off or something.
Right. So you've got a bunch of hikes listed here on this article. I'm not going to run the videos because my speakers will pick it up, and I don't want to get feedback here. But you're talking about you reference Crystal Mountain, which is not in the park, but it's great views of the mountain from Crystal.
Exactly.
Great place to go and see. You've done a great job. So
thank you. One of my favorite trails I like to talk about there is closed now. It got some damage a couple years ago in the storms, the flooding damage, but as a Grove of the Patriarchs. And I'm sure they're working on that one to get it open because it was one of the busiest trails in the park. But you got the Silver Falls Trail. It's beautiful. It's not far from that. It's an easy hike, not too bad of a hike. Got incredible views of waterfalls. Mount Rainier is all about waterfalls. I don't know if you know just how many waterfalls, but it's crazy, right?
I don't know how many.
I don't know how many. I know there's a lot. But you got Narada Falls. You got all kinds of falls up there. And it's just, man, the hiking around them is just second to none. And then you can hike around that summit, the loop when you get up in Paradise. You can do that loop up there. And when you hit it in the summertime with the wildflowers,
Hmm.
I'm telling you, it's just one of the most beautiful sights to behold.
It is. It's absolutely jaw-dropping. So I'm on your, what article am I on? You Washington. You got an article on Washington National Parks, and so here I am talking about exploring Washington State, and I'm every guest points out something that I don't know about Washington State because I don't know that much. It's just so it's I always have to be the guy who has to look like, oh, you should know that, but I don't. So you've got Ebby's Landing,
Mm-hmm.
Fort Vancouver, the Klondike Gold Rush National Historical Park. Where's
Yes,
that at?
that's downtown Seattle.
Is
Down
it?
there by the baseball field and football field down there, there's a visitor center. And that talks about the gold rush. And
Yeah.
there's also now a historical park. They do have also, like in Skagway, they have a big part of that park there.
Okay.
You know, and that's where people were coming in, catching the boat, heading up on the gold rush and heading up north. That you know how gold was. I mean, that's the big settlement coming over. So it's a big story to talk about. It's the gold rush.
We mentioned Lake Roosevelt earlier.
Mm-hmm.
The Manhattan Project.
That's one of my favorites to talk about. Actually, it's very little, well, not much known about it really,
Mm-hmm.
and it's had more of an impact on everybody's life than anybody can think about. You know what was developed there, right?
Mm-hmm.
The big thing that went boom
Mm-hmm.
in Japan that ended World War II.
Yeah.
That's what was developed there.
Yeah.
And I mean, so that has a pretty significant part of our history. And now today, you can actually meet at the visitor center in I think it's Richland, and you can catch a bus that takes you to the actual place where the B reactor is, and you can actually see all the reactor and stuff. It's pretty impressive. And you think about the technology then, what they had, and you're thinking about uranium, and you're thinking about the big boom, and it's like, man, that was all done with this. That's impressive.
Well, yeah. The I have a story about that, but the other story that I'll share is the when you think about when we landed on the moon,
Mm-hmm.
and my iPhone has more computational power than we had to get us on the moon.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty amazing what people create without having an iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
I have a friend who lives in the Tri-Cities area, and we were there for a business event. He goes, "Hey, you want to ride out to Hanford?" I'm like, "Yeah, okay, sure." He goes, "Oh, we'll stir up the guards." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And he's a good guy, but he's got he's a rabble rouser. So we've got this white Chevy pickup truck, nice truck, more of a luxury vehicle than a truck, right? And we're driving out down this 3 or 4 lane road directly towards, well, I'll call Hanford. Big sign saying, basically turn around, please. You're not welcome beyond this sign. And he goes, "No, we're going to keep going." And all of a sudden an unmarked Chevy Suburban pulls in right behind us. And then all of a sudden one comes directly at us and stops us. And they're like, "What are you guys here?" And they were very nice about it. It's just like, but yeah, that was like, they're very protective of that. So to go out to see Reactor B might be kind of a very cool thing. And you just don't get to drive out there and go see it. No one's going to let you near it.
Absolutely.
So then we've got Minnetonka National Historic Site, and
yes.
that's on Bainbridge, right?
Yes.
Okay. And
that's all part of the Japanese internment camps.
Right. And that just recently there was something that just was recently going on about that.
I think they just made another one, a site somewhere about to, in Colorado, I believe it is.
Yeah. And then we've got,
and everybody knows about Manzanar. That's another one.
Mm-hmm.
And Manzanar is one, the one guy who was in Star Trek or something. He grew up in that.
Oh, did he?
Nakai.
Oh, I did not know that.
So he grew up in one of those internment camps. So that's why he's always talking about that.
Interesting.
And what people don't know about that, and this is what's important, I think, for us to know about our own history, is everybody talks about how important is our rights. I think all of our rights are very important because Japanese Americans were all through the West Coast when Pearl Harbor hit, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were Americans. They did nothing wrong. They were just, part of their heritage was just being Japanese. And when Pearl Harbor hit, what happened? They were just rounded up. They lost their houses, their businesses, and
Mm-hmm.
everything. And they were just put in these internment camps.
Right.
And when they were finally released, they were given a one-way bus ticket to the Midwest or something.
Mm-hmm.
They lost their houses, they lost their businesses.
Yeah.
They were basically put in quote unquote a jail, which wasn't really considered a jail, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how quickly our rights can be taken away. And they did nothing legally wrong. And I think it's something we have to learn as Americans is that this is the importance of our national park sites is we need to know that that's how quickly our rights can be taken away if we let it.
You're absolutely correct. I know somebody whose grandparents lost a very large farm and a florist business.
Yes.
And yeah. Then we have Rainier, which we kind of touched on. The Nez Perce National Historic Park. Where's that at?
Oh, that's south. That's in Idaho, I think, isn't it? A portion of Washington is Perce. That one I'm not really familiar with.
Well, okay. So here's what you say right here.
Oh, it's the trail, isn't it?
Well, you have it listed as a National Historical Park and located in Idaho, Montana, Oregon, and Washington.
Okay, so
Lewiston, Idaho is where the center is.
Lewiston's okay. Now I know it's the one that's straight out of Lewiston.
Right.
And they do have a couple sites in Washington. It's mostly focused in the Idaho area.
We got North Cascades and the Olympics. We talked about San Juan Island.
Oh, do you know about that part?
I do.
That's a fun one. Talk about the pig war.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And how we almost got in a war over a pig.
Over a pig. Mm-hmm.
Over a pig.
and then what we talked about just briefly was the Whitman mission near Walla Walla.
Right.
So those are currently what Washington State has in the national parks system, if you will.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of the things I've noticed on your website, and this is now going to shift gears and talk about your site. How many articles do you have on this thing on your site?
Between the state or the national park landing pages and articles, probably somewhere around 800 to 900.
It's a lot of work.
It is.
It's a lot of work. So when I look at your menu, you've got U.S. national parks, you got cruise travel, state parks, and recipes.
Yeah.
Now, if you look at me, I obviously look like I like food. So how are you tying food into the park ranger thing? What's the connection here?
Well, I have a part of a long-term plan that's going to get further involved in that.
Okay.
But as somebody that hasn't quite dug in full time, I haven't given up state service yet, but that's soon. I want to start talking more camping outdoor recipes and stuff.
Okay.
I do got a few of my favorite things that I kind of like that I just threw on there, and I got a couple drinks in there because, after a good hike, a good beer, I got beers inspired by the national parks because, I don't know if you've been around, but you'll see a beer has got a theme. I mean, I've even got a picture of me drinking a Rainier on Mount Rainier, by the way. So, I mean, I like some of the themes of some of the beers and its spirits. Well, and when I put that article up, there's a lot of people like, well, what about wines? I know there's a lot of wines. So I started doing research and I found some wines and put it up. But wines change like crazy, so that one's really out of date.
Okay.
But then I got people asking me about spirits because spirits are such a growing thing.
Yep.
And I found some spirits, same thing, and done that. I mean, so people really love that. And I put a few of my drinks that I like. I like a good bourbon every now and then. So, I'll tell that. But, so it's kind of a fun little side. When I get a little sidetracked of wanting to dig into a park for a day, I might do something like that on there. It's still my site. I can add my own flavor to it too.
Isn't that the best thing? It's my site. I can do what I want. I like that. I
Absolutely.
like that about sites.
Yeah. It may not be all about parks, but we've all had a good day after a good hike and we want a good drink to celebrate and have a good time.
Well, there's a book out, Beers at the Bottom. It's Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia hikes based on where to go. You can go have a beer afterwards.
Nice.
That Brandon Fralick, and it's in its second edition now. It's been so popular. Brandon used to be an editor here on our site, and he's been a guest a couple of times because he's written some other hiking books too. And I was just like, "Are you kidding me? You planning hikes about beer?" And he looked at me like I was just like, "Well, doesn't everybody?" And I was like,
If you hike 15 miles, at least there should be a reward, right?
I kind of went, oh, "You got me there," you know. So, ton of content.
Mm-hmm.
You haven't been to all the parks yet.
I've been to 58 of the 63 national parks.
So so you got 5 to go. What are those 5?
The only one in the lower 48 is Isle Royal up in Michigan.
Okay.
And that's up on the lake there. You got to go on a boat to get there.
Right.
American Samoa, which is in Samoa.
Oh, wow. Okay. So that's going to be a bit of a trek.
That is a trek. And then I haven't been to Kodiak, Lake Clark, Gates of the Arctic, and Kobuk Valley.
Do you have
and
any?
And those are all the backcountry Alaska ones.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually going to require me to actually have to get a float plane or something to get to them or something.
So do you have any plans in the works for just as this is video or this is audio, the video, the lights just went on there, and so the cameras are all like, ah. Do you have any? Are you got any plans in the works to go to any of these in the near future?
Get to every one of them personally.
Well, yeah, I anticipate you will, but do you have anything in the near future planned out?
This year I want to get to Isle Royal up in Michigan.
Okay.
The other ones are going to be a feather in the hat kind of thing. I mean, and the thing about like even getting up into Kobuk Valley and Gates of the Arctic and Lake Clark, there's not really much for services. I mean, they don't have visitor centers. They don't have really trails. It's just wilderness.
Okay.
So, you can say you've been there, but what do you do? Walk around for a little bit in the forest, and you don't have the same. There's not much I'm going to be able to bring to my readers right now, and that's what I'm really trying to focus on, is bringing stuff to my readers right now as much as I can, and so that's not the direction I'm really aiming towards. Isle Royal, yes, I mean there's a lodge there, and there's some other stuff, but maybe in the future when they start getting a little bit more developed, or I really want to get to a few more of the East Coast parks that I haven't been to yet. Mm-hmm. And there's some big sites there I just haven't been to yet. It's just, it's just getting there. And when there's 424 of them, there's a lot to go to.
There's a lot to go to.
We've been to approximately 300 of the sites.
Wow.
We still got like 124 to go. So.
Ow. All right. So this is, I know I'm asking you an impossible question. I know it. What's your favorite park?
Depends on what you want.
Oh, we cop out answer. No. What's your favorite park? What? Okay.
So for me,
yeah.
Okay. For a good hike, it's going to be something different than going to wildlife watching.
All right. What's your favorite park for hiking?
Hiking, I would say, is Zion.
Okay.
I've hiked almost every trail in that park.
Okay.
Absolutely. And that's probably one of the parks that I actually fell in love with, the national parks. Gosh, I don't know how many nights I've camped there. Almost got lost once.
Okay.
And oddly enough, I had cell service that night, and I got a hold of my wife, and then I forgot to call her and told her I'd make it home. And needless to say, for about 5 years afterwards, every Christmas I got new GPS units and stuff like that.
Do you have a satellite phone now?
No, right.
All right. So how about for looking at wildlife?
Man, that's so hard because there's.
I know. I know that these are. I know there's no wrong answers here. I'm just asking you your opinions.
Yellowstone's an epic one. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And, and I've seen wolves in Yellowstone. That's an experience. I've seen all the major games there and stuff. I mean, Yellowstone's just amazing. You know,
Sure.
everybody knows that.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the surprise ones that people don't know, I think, is Mount Rainier. There's tons of wildlife at Mount Rainier. I've seen black bears, foxes, you name it. I've seen it there. I love Mount Rainier for
Mm-hmm.
wildlife. Um, and then there's Alaska. I mean, Alaska, geez, I could talk for days about wildlife in Alaska. I've done Glacier Bay, and you know, most people experience Glacier Bay by cruise ship, but
Mm-hmm.
you can actually stay in the lodge. There's an actual lodge in Glacier Bay, and that was built in '76. It was part of the or 66 Mission 66 project, and that was the 50-year anniversary for national parks. So they wanted to build everything up for the. They put a lodge in at Glacier Bay.
Mm-hmm.
There in the bay there, Bartlett Cove. When we stayed there, we had humpback whales breaching in the cove there, sitting there eating dinner at the lodge.
Wow. Okay.
Talk about just incredible, you know. I mean, we went hiked the trail up along the ocean there, and you see otters playing in the water and stuff. And then we took a boat tour right out of there up into Glacier Bay, and
Mm-hmm.
it's a much smaller boat than a cruise ship. So we really got in and got to see so much more wildlife than you see on a cruise ship. It was hands down one of my favorite trips. And the Kenai Fjords was the same way. Same thing with the, getting up into the fjords and stuff. We've seen tons of wildlife there. So,
Okay. Then this is the dreaded negative question.
okay.
Once again, your opinion. What's the most overrated park?
Man,
In your opinion. That's like asking, which one of your kids is your least favorite. I know, but
no, I think the hardest one for me is, and I think it's because I just don't like the classification of
okay.
it, is Gateway Arch.
Okay.
It is a really cool monument. Don't get me wrong. You got the arch itself.
Mm-hmm.
The westward expansion. That's what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Dred Scott case, the courthouse is right across the way, and you got the rivers right there. I mean, but you're still right in the middle of a city. And some of the biggest questions I get this all the time. You're right downtown, right?
Right.
And most people's going around the park. She's like, I got a fifth wheel. Where the hell do I park? You're right downtown. Well, maybe if you're lucky.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
And
Okay.
so things like that. They've got a phenomenal visitor center, but I don't know if it's a national park as much as it is, a national historical park.
Okay.
Because it's more about the history and stuff. It's not. You're not putting on your hiking boots and going for a hike. What most people think of a national park.
Right. Oh no, I think that's
And I don't know
fair.
what the resource per se is being protected. Like I said, when you go to hot springs, you got the water.
Mm-hmm.
But skiing, again, the
water,
the bay there,
mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's necessarily protected besides a march. So I just think it's more a misclassification.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So you live in Spokane.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about Spokane for a little bit.
Okay.
Let me ask you, let me, I'm saying this in jest. Why Spokane?
Well, I have family that's
Okay.
there. That's why I wanted to move there and do stuff. But as I've gotten older now, I'm looking at some other stuff too, and moving towards as I'm looking to retirement. I think I'd like to pass in a snowblower for maybe some flip flops and some palm trees or something.
What? You don't want to use your snowblower? Your wife's nodding her head behind you. This is pretty funny. She's just nodding her head. I'm totally with you on this, by the way.
If you've been around long enough, last year I walked out on my driveway and, it looked normal. But that little thing we get like freezing fog.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, when I landed down and cracked a rib,
uh-huh.
I was like, yeah, maybe I should think about this.
so it's we moved to Wenatchee in 2017, right? And and some of our friends lived here, or they were living here. They don't live here anymore. And they're not. We didn't move here because of them, but we moved here because they were so enthusiastic about the area. And I was looking to get away from the traffic. of the Seattle Tacoma area and all this stuff, and the rain and the gray. Anyway, so we move over here, and then a couple of years later, 3 years later, they go, "Yep, we're gonna sell." Why? We're sick of the snow. And I'm like, really? I still kind of like it. Well, last year, 2022, I did not like. We got almost 3 feet in one day here, and then it froze and stuck around. And I felt like Jack Nicholson in The Shining. I just couldn't leave my house, and I was not happy. And then it snowed in, and then it snowed in April.
Right.
And we got a foot of snow like on April 13th. Because my birthday's April 12th, and my wife threw a surprise birthday party for me, and it was snow. I mean, I'm kind of with you. The whole snowblower thing. Okay. But
I had a lot of fun with, and I worked in snow parks for years. I mean, I can tell you awesome stories of being a park ranger, doing snowmobile patrols and stuff like that.
Right. Yeah.
Cross country skiing and snowshoeing and stuff. But, when we get older, as we age, and you start crossing in the 50s, and you've had blown out knees and stuff, that cold weather is not as fun.
No, it's not. No, I agree
anybody
with you.
that start to hit that age, they understand.
No, I agree with you. But so I think what I told you on the phone was that, growing up as a kid in Tacoma, we thought we looked down on Spokane, which is just kind of funny that Tacoma would look down on anything. But,
you guys had the Tacoma aroma. I mean,
exactly. So it just seems really funny that Tacoma would look down on anything, but we look down on Spokane. But going there now, I think Spokane is a great town, great city. I don't know. It doesn't quite seem like a city to me in the sense like New York or Chicago or Seattle, but it's not like Wenatchee.
No, well, Spokane County has over 500,000.
Yeah, there's a lot of people living there.
Pretty good size,
right?
Little areas.
You have a great coffee scene. There's some great coffee there. Where's your go-to coffee place? Yeah, you're drinking out of it. By the way, he's drinking out of a Mount Rainier coffee mug, folks. So he's playing along with the theme of the show. So
I'm a true park ranger. Your park rangers like their
coffee, right? So where do you go for coffee in Spokane?
My favorite little place just up the road from me really is Tom's Hammer. That's my little go-to. It's kind of a little cold up here. I could go get to Starbucks. I mean, everybody knows that in Washington, but I like the Thomas Hammer. It's a really good coffee. And there's a lot of little small coffee shops and stuff now. I can't even tell you all of them, but I know.
So when you go for coffee, what do you get?
I like just straight black coffee,
as it should be.
And I just like a good light roast. Why? Because I like caffeine.
Really?
Light roast has the highest concentration of caffeine, right?
Yeah, I know, but I just like the dark. I like my coffee so that I can stand a spoon up in it.
Yeah, I like to drink coffee all day long and get the caffeine out of it.
Yeah, all right. Well, I can't really. You're a coffee drinker. We can agree.
But I love coffee. I've drank coffee all around the world. I've had Kopi Luwak in Bali. That's the one where the little rodent eats it and kind of goes through their system. And
You've had that, huh?
That's really, really good, by the way.
I'll take your word for it.
You know what? I would drink it right now if I had some.
I believe you. I would too, but it's still
it's truly amazing. Yeah. But I've had it. Nicaragua was in Nicaragua. I've had down to there. I even was in Colombia. I got some Colombian coffee, and
so you've got it closer to the source than by the time it gets shipped up here and roasted.
Yeah, well, I was in the tourist area. When I done a Panama Canal cruise, so we stopped in Colombia. They have it all safe. Even for Americans to go in.
Right.
So, and there's somebody with machine guns about every corner, so they're going to make sure that, the tourism money's coming in.
Right.
But they also get you set, like $3 for a bag of coffee. You're like, well, this must be, good deal. I grabbed it, brought it home. I ground that coffee up, and I used the rest of the beans as a decorative dish in the thing for how you can put beans in like a thing and then put flowers. It was the worst coffee I've ever bought in my life, bar none.
My wife went to Honduras last year. I think it was 2022. And she brought me back some coffee from the little town that she was in. Love my wife, love coffee. Yeah. It was terrible. I drink Folgers. I would drink Folgers over it. It was, and I know my wife's going to listen to this and she'll be, don't be mad. It was the gesture. Yeah, she brought me back scotch from France though. So, I mean, she can do no wrong. So,
right.
So where's a great place in Spokane for lunch?
Oh man. For sandwiches, there's, I love Crusoe's. Man, they got a couple sandwiches there. One's called the Godfather. Another one's Italian Stallion. Both of them, you're not going to go wrong and you're not going to go hungry.
So
that's a good sandwich shop.
Now they sound similar to me though. I mean, they're both, I'm thinking, so what are they?
The Godfather has turkey, a little bit of everything in it.
Right.
And then the Italian Stallion's got more pepperoni, salami.
Okay.
The more of that.
Yeah. More of the meat.
Both of them are, both really good sandwiches.
Okay.
If I'm in a good mood for something Italian or Irish, Conley's down in the valley is really good.
Really?
I like that. I've had good lamb stew down there. And have a Guinness and lamb stew. I'm Irish, so that'd be great. I love Germany's. I love going to Das Steinhaus.
Okay.
Up in the north side, the guy there, I think he actually come from Bavaria and grinds his own sausages in house.
Wow.
I mean, so it's a pretty good place. I really like that one too.
Okay.
And then a new one. Well, it's new to here, but barbecue itself. It came from Tri-Cities. You might have heard of. It's Porter.
I'm sorry. I was coughing, and even though I muted myself, I didn't hear you.
It started in Tri-Cities, and I got 3 restaurants there for barbecue. It just moved to the north side of Spokane. It's called Porter's.
Oh, they moved to Spokane?
They got its place in Spokane now.
Oh.
And if you know what I'm talking about.
I do.
I appreciate good barbecue, and that's some good barbecue.
Porter's is great. I didn't know that they
had fantastic. So they just opened on the north side up, almost up towards the Target. Right there on the corner of Holland and I guess Division or whatever.
Okay. Okay.
So they're there. That's a good local establishment. Well, I would consider it local.
Yeah, that's local. I mean, but it's good barbecue. My goal when I travel is to always eat somewhere I can't eat at home. And so living in Wenatchee, it's really easy because, we don't have that many restaurants to choose from. So going to Spokane, it's not hard. The only exception I have is I will go to Starbucks because I always know their bathrooms are clean.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they've become the modern gas station, if you will, in that sense to me. And their coffee's fine. But their
regular coffee's fine. I try to stick away from the sugary things. That. I love good coffee.
What do you guys like to do for fun and recreation around Spokane?
A little bit of everything. I mean, we do a lot of work, so we travel a lot. Mm-hmm. And, especially since hitting the parks, I like to hit all the different parks. I've been to a lot of them. I'll go visit. Like I said, I worked at Riverside and Mount Spokane both.
Mm-hmm.
Lord, the big part is I work a lot.
Well, that's okay. But the thing about work is if you enjoy what you're doing, it's enjoyable. It's not a bad thing, right?
The crazy thing is when I started this blog, I started 5 years ago, by the way, 5.5 years ago.
Right.
And like I said, I felt like I had something to still tell.
Right.
And, and put in my insight and the park ranger twist on it.
Mm-hmm.
And man, it's given me a real excuse and a fire to go see all the parks.
Yeah.
And I've kind of made that my mission. And like I said, I'm up to like 300 other national park sites now. So that's been kind of my big thing is really exploring the parks. Right. And so I haven't spent as much time in Spokane as I normally would.
Right.
But I feel like I've kind of explored a lot of Spokane too.
Right.
So,
now in your bio on your site, you mentioned you have a love of baseball. So do you go to Spokane Indians games?
I do go to some of the Indians games. I grew up playing baseball, so that was just kind of the sport I enjoyed playing the most and or watching. I've been to the Mariners, watched several Mariners games.
Mm-hmm.
I love baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a great game. It's a great sport. I
They're
love.
supposed to be doing quite a renovation on the stadium now too. So
That's what I heard. I did read something about that. Yes, I did read something that they were going to be doing that, and that's short season single A, right?
I think they went to long season single A now.
Okay.
I think
They're playing against the Tri-City Dust Devils, if I remember correctly.
I think this last year they moved to a long season A, and maybe Tri Cities moved with them or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think.
But you know how that always ebbs and flows and change. At one time we had a triple A.
Right. No, absolutely. Yeah, you did.
That's when
right.
Portland lost them their baseball team.
Well, Portland has the Portland Pickles now.
Yeah, right.
In the West Coast League, which is Wenatchee has a team in the West Coast League. And
have you seen that movie about the Portland Mavericks?
I have. I'm aware of it. I have never seen it yet.
That is worth watching. That's really.
I have heard that. Yes, I've heard that. What that was. Yeah, a semi fictionalized true account, if you will, of what they went through. So
right.
Right. Okay. Well, as we wrap this up, these are my get out of jail free questions.
Okay.
This one's very important. Cake or pie, and why?
Key lime pie, particularly.
Okay.
Now, again, I grew up. My dad's side of the family's down south, so I grew up in Florida,
right?
And that's when I fell in love with key lime, okay. And that's always been my thing.
That's your thing.
You give me a piece of key lime pie, any cake in the world, I'm gonna take the key lime
pie. Wow,
that's my jam.
Wow, I think you've just set the record for fastest answer. It's so funny people get stumped on that one so much. It's like I've asked them, water or air. Okay, so
need both.
Yeah. Okay. Last question really is, what didn't I ask you that I should have? What didn't? Because this is a wide ranging conversation. What didn't I ask you that we should have talked about?
I think the number one question I get asked all the time, is how do I become a park ranger?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good random question. And there's probably somebody possibly be listening, kind of curious about that. And, and it's a little bit different path for everybody, but, I got a degree in natural resources management. And I also got a business minor because I was foreseeing thinking, eventually moving into management when I get older, I wanted to have that information too. And then I went to law enforcement academy, and there's an actual parks academy at Sketch Valley College, and that's where I went to for my academy.
How long is that academy? How long does that take?
Now I'm not sure how many hours it is. I think it's approximately about 750, 800 hours, I think.
Okay. So
I'm guessing from the hip here on this, but it's a good 3 months of your life is dedicated towards doing it. And it's long and it's fast and it's a lot of work, but you get through it and yeah.
Okay.
And but I started working as a seasonal employee. That's how I kind of got my foot in the door. Kind of got a reputation, which is always a good thing, I mean, because when somebody knows who they are, it helps.
Right. Well, if you're putting out fires at 1 a.m. with a that'll
when
get
they
your
didn't
reputation.
Have to wake up and you got to sleep that night. It's probably a good thing, right?
There you go. There you go.
You earn your right as knowing that you're a hard worker. You know you're not a knucklehead. You can listen to direction. All easy to get along with. I tell people that all the time. When everybody asks me what's the most important feature I always look for, I said, I always look for attitudes. I mean, I can train skills. Right. I can teach anybody to clean a bathroom, but you can't teach somebody to have a great attitude when they come to work. And when you're happy and you go to work and you're around a bunch of people that are fun to work with, man, that makes all the difference in the world. You can be doing a mundane job, but when everybody's fun and having a great time, it makes all the difference,
Absolutely.
And so I always told people that I was like, get a chance to, let them get to know who you are and stuff. And you got a much better chance getting a job that way. And you get some work experience on top of it.
Okay.
And if you don't have work experience, try to volunteer a little bit of time. they're always looking for volunteers in parks, and you
Sure.
know, anything you can do to help out. I mean, that's a good chance to get known and who you are.
I think that's great
That's
advice.
great advice for anybody
Mhm.
trying to get in.
Okay. So if the
Yeah.
audience wants to find you online, parkrangerjohn.com, but what social media do you use?
I've got a very active Facebook page, and I've got a Facebook group too. That's a very active group. I
Okay.
kind of let people run that themselves, and kind of this is their chance where they get to post their photos and going in on different things and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And people love that. I mean, because they love sharing their parks, going to the parks just as much as I do. And
Right.
man, uh, and they're self-policing. I love it because every once in a while somebody will try to put a political ad up or something like that, and man, they're quick to like, that doesn't belong here. We're reporting you, and they want them off just as quick as I do.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I mean, it's pretty funny. I don't have many problems there because everybody loves parks. So it's a great place to go if you like parks too. I also have a Twitter. I'm a little bit on Twitter, but I do a lot of Facebook. Got some Instagram. I put like some pretty photos up on that one,
Mm-hmm.
and I got Pinterest account where I got a bunch of photos and leads to articles and stuff too. And I even started playing a little bit on TikTok just because it's where a lot of people have gone. So I've got about a dozen videos up now. I mean, I'll slowly add to it as I get going, but you know,
How do you like creating on TikTok?
I don't mind it. It just takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And the hardest thing I have right now limiting me is time.
Okay.
And what I'm finding out is I thought it would be pretty easy to keep up with parks because they're pretty evergreen. A park's a park. They got trails. They got you know all this stuff. But like here lately, I'm getting inundated with questions about Yosemite because I got 15 feet of snow all of a sudden. And it looks like another 2 feet on the way. And everybody's asking me how the summer's going to be, and
Oh,
all this stuff. And I'm like, well, we'll have to see how this plays out.
right. Right.
I
Yep.
don't have it. I don't have a crystal ball for that one.
Right. And you got to be careful because you're a fan of the parks. You're not an unofficial spokesperson for the park. So
Absolutely.
you've got to, add that disclaimer. Well, I don't know if you have to, but you probably are adding a disclaimer saying this is my
Right.
opinion. Yeah.
It's my opinion. Right.
Right.
And
So, well,
you can just never tell.
right. No. And then, yeah, so people can find you and we'll put links in the show notes to your social channels and all that, and to your website. Anything else you want to close with?
No, I mean, if you want anything about parks, come check it out. And like I said, I've talked about a lot of parks now, so there's a chance you're going to find some information. And if you don't find it there, send me a message.
Well, I kid you about the blister, but there's hundreds. There's just hundreds.
Well, and the funny thing is, from what I started doing to what I'm doing now, I've changed quite a bit. I've learned over the years because I was very Yogi Bear when I first started.
Uh-huh.
Hearts and flowers, and I'm like, I need to give some people content too of what it's not just all pretty trees and stuff like that. I need to give them some really usable, tangible stuff, and when they come in, they feel prepared. So I've really kind of changed it around a little bit. But
Mm-hmm.
now I find myself having to go back and update articles. When you got that many articles, that's a lot of work to go back and go re-update everything. And then you find out little things like they added new parks. They got to change things that has the state landing pages, the main landing page, and something happens like Yosemite, it's closed now, or like Death Valley last year when they had the massive floods and they had to close the entire park because of the flooding, and trying to keep up with a little bit of that stuff too.
Yeah, and they're probably not notifying you that, hey, we changed the hours of operation, or hey, we're changing our price. You've got to be out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just because I'm on the article about the U.S. National Park Pass, which
Oh yeah.
okay, so I'm going to
Well,
put a
then
link
they
to
have
that.
3 days, and some days that changes what days they have off and everything else.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm gonna
there's keep up.
I'm gonna link. I'm gonna put a link to the Park Pass on the page because that's something we should have talked about it, but Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, that could always be another episode right
There we go. There we go. So,
there.
John, thank you so much taking the time to sit down and chat with me. And I hope your cat is okay.
Oh, I'm sure he's as honored as ever.
I don't know if you heard my dog was scratching at my door trying to get in. I had to text my wife to say, hey, can you get the dog? Because he'll break through the door.
Right.
Anyway, well, I will let you go. You have a great evening, and I really appreciate you being on.
You bet. Thanks a lot.
Hope you enjoyed the show. You can reach me on Twitter at ExploreWaState. I'd love to hear your comments. You can also visit our website at explorewashingtonstate.com. If you know anyone who would like the show, it'd be amazing if you'd share the show with them. This is the biggest way that we grow this show. Good old word of mouth. Glad you were here with me today, and I hope to have you listening to the next episode. See you then.